We started the company back in 2015 and started doing a lot of work in AI in 2016, coming into 2017. And one of the things that we discovered was that a lot of companies were struggling to just have a strategy around AI. We would get projects where a company had a particular problem or an idea, and they'd say, hey, can you go build a model? And for the first couple of projects we worked on, we would take what little data they had, we would go try to build something, and we quickly learned that they were kind of lacking either high quality data, a direction around the use case that they were trying to apply that data to and build a model, or just the overall implementation of that model into some sort of system. And in the first couple of years of the company, we had a strategy offering that was fairly customized. So each client we worked with, we had a general sense of a methodology based on management consulting principles, but we didn't really have a framework. And so AIQ is a term we invented in 2021 to be that overall framework for both the strategy around AI as well as the execution. And so as you look at this slide here, what we're outlining is that in the ideal case, we start with companies and help them understand their readiness for AI. And that's a two-part process. We start with conducting assessments on their capabilities today, and then we formulate a strategy, essentially a data strategy that's a connection between their maturity in these capabilities and the objectives they hope to hit in the near versus long term. So starting with the assessment and data strategy, we then move into delivering them a roadmap and recommendations. And that becomes the seed for driving execution, which is on the left-hand side here, the use case-driven initiatives. And so these initiatives may be foundational, like building a data lake or building a data science team, or they may be discrete AI models that are built to fulfill some sort of use case. So AIQ is really, again, that overarching theme of everything that we do, from assessing a company's current state to building a strategy and roadmap to then executing on that strategy and roadmap to projects related to technology or AI work or people and process work. We identified 11 capabilities that we felt were fundamental to companies being ready to implement AI. And the reason why we chose these 11 capabilities was that it's not just about having competency around building models and deploying models, it's also about data. And when we think about what capabilities are important to deploy AI, it really depends on the business. So in some cases, businesses already have strong data architecture and governance and strong product management, but they don't have competency in building models. Therefore, they can use partners like Synaptiq to do that type of work, or they can decide to hire people internally. When we look at the 11 capabilities, no company, except probably some of the big public data companies, are exceptional in all these capabilities. It's really figuring out the right level of maturity required inside the company in order to be successful, with augmentation outside the company where it makes sense. So the AIQ score is very much mirrored off of the IQ score. And it's a way to benchmark where a company is across the 11 capabilities. But it's not to say that if you have a low AIQ, you can't do anything in AI. It's just to say that your organization is going to be more successful implementing AI across the enterprise if you have an AIQ that is high. But we really encourage companies to start working on their capabilities and implementing AI so that they can build their competency over time. I think the real key and why we provide a very tailored strategy is understanding where your business is going. And that is critical, including kind of the competitive space around the business that we get from you, the client, but also figuring out what areas from an 11 capability perspective are important to meet that business objective. And in turn, will likely increase your AIQ. But the AIQ is just a way for you to have a sense of the overall maturity of these 11 capabilities. It's not, we want you to focus on increasing your AIQ and forget about your business objectives. We really want the business objectives to be the driving force. And AIQ is a KPI behind your data and AI capabilities. But I think companies that say, hey, we should really just focus in on data engineering, they're missing the point, right? The point is, If the company needs to grow 30%, then let's find data-related initiatives that can help the company grow to 30% and think about the capabilities behind those initiatives that are important for the company to mature in order to meet that business objective, which in turn will increase their AIQ. And the world is changing so fast, and having been in a management consulting firm early in my career, learned pretty quickly that a strategy is only as good as the execution and the update of the strategy given changes in the market. And so we very much encourage companies to go through the assessment data strategy process on an annual basis. And in some cases, there may just be some slight modifications, but given changes going on in the world and in industries today, there may be drastic modifications on an annual basis. And therefore, we wouldn't want a company to execute on a roadmap that needs to change given changes in their environment. So we really encourage kind of this reassessment process. And the key here is that for us, unlike the large management consulting firms, this is a 6 to 8 week process. This isn't a multi-month, millions of dollars effort. We're really about doing a rapid assessment and data strategy so that you focus on the execution and have a basis for making a roadmap and executing on it. So we've broken it down into 5 steps. We're offering this as like a productized service where, within a 6 to 8 week period, working with a client, we can collect some information, run 2 rounds of assessments, compile recommendations, and deliver a strategy in less than 2 months. In fact, we're getting to the point now that depending on how fast the organization can move, that can end up being more like 3 to 4. But the point is that when you're doing something that fast, 6 to 8 weeks, you could potentially run the engagement more than one time a year, maybe even once a quarter if things are changing really fast. But the key is that we've structured and systematized this process. So, it's a very straightforward and a very well articulated deliverable that you get through this process. And it's not, hey, we collect information, we go away and we deliver a document. There are steps within these 5 steps where we share information we're collecting with the core team that our clients designate. They provide further input, and it's really a collaborative effort to get to a strategy deliverable that is realistic and meaningful to the business. Two ways we do that. One is we have a due diligence list that we share with our client at the beginning of these projects. And that includes elements that we'd like them to share around business strategy, architecture, things like that. And so in the background of this engagement, we're parsing through those documents and learning context and plans. But then we have the structured approach of these assessments. So we do a broad stroke assessment with ideally various executives in the organization in different functions. And then we do deeper assessments in specific capabilities with people that are in the trenches doing that work. And so between those 3 things, these documents that we collect, the broad stroke assessment, and these very narrow kind of deep capabilities assessments, we collect basically all the information we need to generate a strategy and roadmap. And as I mentioned, along the way, we're collecting more qualitative data from the core project team to make sure that we're on track. Yeah, in fact, it's most fascinating. And this is why we encourage getting different organizations or different functional leaders to fill it out, because it's between those functions that we learn things that are very interesting about the company. So for instance, it's pretty common to see the finance department feel very differently about data than the sales department. And those different perspectives identify opportunities for improvements or may highlight something that the entire organization didn't know that was very favorable. And so we really encourage at that broad stroke assessment to go across functions, because that really identifies some of these insights that are hard to find if you focus in on one specific function. It's really having a collaborative team working with your organization on executing on these capabilities, be it building AI model, be it building data platforms, be it helping the organization figure out how to design itself for the future. So we work as partners with our clients in a very personalized fashion. And in the best case scenario, we are seen as strategic partners, thought leaders, outside experts that organizations can use to pressure test new ideas and to help think through and build out new capabilities in their business. And that may be for technology companies helping on the product side of the organization, building data-driven capabilities into their products, or it may be on the operational side of the business and helping to make the business more efficient by automating processes with data and or discovering new patterns in their data that they didn't even know existed because those capabilities weren't in-house.